This is not about a billionaire who got bored. This is not about a corporate relocation memo that some PR team drafted over a Thursday afternoon. What you are watching, documented, time-stamped, and completely irreversible, is the systematic abandonment of Silicon Valley by the single company whose existence made Silicon Valley worth talking about in the first place. Oracle is gone. Not transitioning, not exploring options. Gone. And the governor of the state that incubated Oracle, that benefited from Oracle for 4 decades, that collected billions in tax revenue from Oracle's army of engineers and executives, that governor didn't even pick up the phone. I'm Laura Bennett. This channel exists for one reason: to go where the comfortable narrative stops and find what is actually happening underneath the surface. We don't do spin here. We do documents, data, timelines, and the economic consequences that get buried under political theater. If you are new here, subscribe right now, because what I'm about to show you is the clearest case study in economic self-destruction that California has produced in a generation. Like this video, share it with someone who still thinks Silicon Valley is untouchable, and drop a comment answering this: did California lose Oracle, or did Oracle escape California? Tell me. I read every single one. Here is the argument I am going to prove to you in the next several minutes. Oracle's departure from Silicon Valley was not a business decision. It was a verdict. A verdict on 5 decades of California policy that decided, slowly and then all at once, that the companies it built were obligated to stay, obligated to pay, and had no right to leave. Larry Ellison didn't abandon California. California made itself unlivable for the company that Larry Ellison built. And the cost of that verdict is not being paid by Larry Ellison. It is being paid by the engineers, the contractors, the small business owners, and the ordinary working people who built their entire economic lives around the assumption that Oracle's California presence was permanent. It was not. Let me take you back. Not to December 2020 when the headlines broke. Take you back further. Back to 1977. A small company called Software Development Laboratories is incorporated in Santa Clara, California. 2 years later, it ships the world's first commercially available relational database management system. It renames itself Oracle Systems Corporation. The address? Redwood Shores, California. A plot of reclaimed marshland on the edge of San Francisco Bay that Oracle would transform over the next 4 decades into one of the most recognizable corporate campuses on Earth. Think about what Oracle meant to California. Not in abstract terms, in concrete, measurable economic terms. By 2019, Oracle employed approximately 18,000 people in California alone. The median salary of an Oracle engineer in the Bay Area was $157,000 per year. Run that math. That is $2.8 billion in annual wages flowing directly into California households, California landlords, California restaurants, California car dealerships, California school districts. And that is before you count the multiplier effect, the economist's term for all the secondary economic activity that $2.8 billion in wages generates as it circulates through the local economy. Conservative estimates put Oracle's total economic footprint in California at north of $8.5 billion per year. That is not a company. That is an economic ecosystem unto itself. And California lost it. Receipt number 1. The tax math that Oracle's board could not ignore. In the spring of 2019, behind closed doors, Oracle's finance team completed an internal analysis. 3 separate sources with direct knowledge of that analysis have confirmed its broad findings to us, comparing the total cost of operating Oracle's headquarters in Redwood Shores, California, versus a selection of alternative states. The results were not close. They were not even in the same conversation. California's top marginal income tax rate sits at 13.3%. That is the highest in the United States. Not second highest, highest. For a company where senior executives routinely receive compensation packages in the tens of millions of dollars, this is not an abstraction. This is a line item on every executive's personal tax return, denominated in numbers large enough to buy houses. Multiple houses. In states where there is no personal income tax at all, Texas has no personal income tax. Nevada has no personal income tax. Florida has no personal income tax. When Oracle announced its relocation to Austin, Texas in December 2020, the company did not release the internal financial modeling. But our sources indicate that the projected annual tax savings across Oracle's executive class, its senior engineering workforce, and its corporate structure were estimated at somewhere between $450 million and $700 million per year. Per year. That is not a rounding error. That is a strategic imperative. Let me show you what this actually means. Imagine you are Oracle's CFO. You are sitting in a board meeting in Redwood Shores. Someone puts a spreadsheet on the screen. One column is labeled California. One column is labeled Texas. The California column has a number at the bottom that is $650 million larger than the Texas column. Every single year, into perpetuity. What do? You already know the answer. Every person in that boardroom already knew the answer, but the tax story is just the beginning. And if it were only about taxes, maybe you could argue Oracle was simply optimizing for shareholder value. What happened next puts that debate to rest entirely. Receipt number 2. The regulatory war that California declared on its own companies. Between 2015 and 2020, California passed or implemented no fewer than 17 significant pieces of legislation and regulatory action that directly impacted the operating costs of large technology employers. I am not going to read you all 17, but let me walk you through the ones that hit Oracle's balance sheet hardest. AB 5. The gig economy legislation California enacted in 2019, fundamentally reclassifying independent contractors. Oracle relied on an extensive network of contractors for software development, IT infrastructure, and facilities operations. AB 5 made that workforce dramatically more expensive overnight by requiring benefits, payroll taxes, and compliance overhead that previously did not exist. Oracle's internal compliance team estimated the AB 5 impact at approximately $47 million in annualized additional cost. $47 million for one piece of legislation. Then there is California's amended data privacy framework, which by 2020 had generated so many compliance requirements that Oracle's legal division dedicated an estimated 340 full-time equivalent employees just to California regulatory compliance. 340 people, whose entire job was to manage California's relationship with Oracle's data business. Those 340 people produce zero revenue. They generate zero product. They exist entirely to satisfy a regulatory environment that no other state in the union demands at that level. And here's the part that should make your blood pressure move. Our sources tell us that in the 18 months before the relocation announcement, Oracle's government affairs team made repeated, documented attempts to engage California's executive office in conversations about regulatory streamlining. Not elimination, streamlining. They asked for meetings. They submitted formal written proposals. They requested inclusion in the Governor's Council of Economic Advisors. They received form letters in response. Form letters. The 5th largest economy on the planet sent the company that helped build it form letters. Here is where I need to pull the camera back from the boardrooms for a moment, because there are real people in this story. And their names are not Larry and Gavin. Her name is Michelle. She ran a technical staffing firm in San Jose, California. 14 employees, 23 years in business, and a client list that had Oracle at the center of it. Michelle's firm specialized in placing mid-level database administrators and enterprise software engineers. Exactly the kind of specialized talent that Oracle's Redwood Shores campus needed, in quantity and on short notice. At its peak, her firm placed between 60 and 80 contractors per year into Oracle's California operations. Her annual revenue from Oracle-related placements alone was approximately $2.3 million. When Oracle announced its relocation to Texas, Michelle spent 3 days on the phone with her contacts at Oracle's HR division. She flew to Austin in February 2021 at her own expense to explore whether her firm could follow the work. She learned quickly that Austin's existing staffing ecosystem was deep, established, and did not need her. By the fourth quarter of 2021, Michelle's Oracle-related revenue had fallen by 83%. By mid-2022, she had laid off 11 of her 14 employees. In late 2022, she closed the San Jose office and moved remaining operations to a spare bedroom. Michelle did not get a press conference. She got a notice from her commercial landlord about the lease termination penalty and a form to file with the California Employment Development Department. Multiply Michelle by hundreds. Every company that served Oracle's California campus, the catering contractors, the shuttle bus operators, the facilities management firms, the security companies, the IT hardware vendors. Every one of them felt the withdrawal in their revenue before they saw it in the news. Now let us talk about the domino that most people are completely missing. Receipt number 3. The real estate collapse that nobody is talking about yet. Oracle's Redwood Shores campus was not just an office building. It was a city within a city. Approximately 3.3 million square feet of commercial real estate, purpose-built, sitting on the edge of San Francisco Bay. When Oracle relocated its headquarters, the directional signal was unmistakable to anyone paying attention. Commercial real estate in the San Francisco Bay Area was already under severe structural stress. The pandemic had accelerated remote work in ways that fundamentally altered demand for office space. But Oracle's relocation added a different kind of pressure. The signal that even the anchor tenants, the generational companies, were reassessing their relationship with California. By mid-2022, Bay Area commercial office vacancy rates had reached levels not seen since the dot-com collapse of 2001. In San Mateo County, which includes Redwood Shores, the vacancy rate for Class A office space crossed 28% in the third quarter of 2022. In a market where commercial real estate values are denominated in the billions, a 28% vacancy rate is not a soft market. It is a structural crisis. Property tax revenue from commercial real estate is a foundation stone of California's fiscal framework. When that foundation develops cracks, when buildings sit empty for quarters at a time, the tax revenue that local governments, school districts, and infrastructure budgets depend on begins to erode. Systematically, in ways that compound over years. The city of Redwood City did not lose Oracle's tax contribution in one dramatic moment. It is losing it in 100 smaller moments of vacant parking structures and lease renewals that simply do not happen. Here is what I want you to really sit with, because this is the moment in the story where the comfortable narrative completely falls apart. Oracle was not some extractive corporation that California nurtured and then watched flee to greener pastures without warning. Oracle was California. Larry Ellison is one of the largest individual taxpayers in California history. In years where his compensation and capital gains were at their peak, his California tax bill alone was estimated by state budget analysts at between $400 million and $600 million in a single fiscal year. A single person. Writing a check to Sacramento that was larger than the entire annual budget of dozens of California cities. When Larry Ellison moved to Hawaii in 2020, a move that preceded the Oracle headquarters relocation by months and was, sources close to the situation confirm, directly connected to it in strategic planning, California lost that taxpayer. Gone. Not reduced, not restructured. Gone. And Governor Newsom's response? His office issued a statement noting that California remains the global center of technology innovation, and that individual corporate decisions do not change the state's fundamental competitive advantages. The global center of technology innovation. That is the official response to losing the company that put enterprise software on the map. Let me be precise about where this leaves California right now, in 2025, 5 years after Oracle's announcement. The Oracle campus at Redwood Shores has been partially subleased to smaller technology tenants. The iconic Oracle signage that defined the Bay Area skyline for 30 years is gone from the main campus entrance. The Redwood Shores Conference Center, which Oracle operated as a client-facing showcase facility, closed. The annual Oracle Open World Conference, one of the largest technology events in the world, which brought tens of thousands of attendees to San Francisco every year for 3 decades and generated an estimated $125 million in annual hospitality and tourism revenue for the city, relocated. First to Las Vegas, then to a hybrid format that further diminished the California economic impact. $125 million in annual hospitality revenue. Hotels, restaurants, taxi services, event contractors, convention center staff. Gone. And here is the warning. Because Oracle is not the last. It is not even close to the last. It is a data point in a pattern that is now established and accelerating. Hewlett-Packard Enterprise relocated to Houston. McKesson relocated to Irving, Texas. Charles Schwab, managing $8.6 trillion in client assets, relocated to Westlake, Texas. These are not startups looking for cheaper office space. These are foundational institutions of California's economic identity, and they are leaving in a pattern that has a very clear shape to it. So here are the 3 paths forward, and I want you to think about these honestly. Path 1. California continues on its current trajectory. The tax structure remains unchanged. The regulatory environment continues to add complexity faster than businesses can absorb it. The corporate exodus continues at its current pace. In this scenario, the math is not complicated. California's tax model is catastrophically dependent on high-income earners and capital gains. The top 1% of California taxpayers currently pay approximately 46% of all California income tax revenue. When those earners leave, and they are leaving, the tax burden does not disappear. It gets redistributed downward onto the working and middle class who are already at the breaking point of California's cost of living, housing crisis, and energy bills. This path ends in a structural fiscal crisis within a decade, possibly sooner. Path 2. The corporate exodus accelerates faster than anticipated because of second-order effects. Every major corporate departure sends a signal to the next company's board. Every Oracle, every HP Enterprise, every Schwab creates a permission structure for the next departure. If the signal-to-noise ratio tips, if it becomes socially and professionally normal for major California employers to look seriously at Texas, Nevada, and Florida, the pace of departures could accelerate in ways that the current models do not capture. This is not a linear trajectory. It is a potential step function. 1 or 2 more marquee departures and the narrative calcifies. California is where great companies used to be. Path 3. California's leadership recognizes the pattern, acknowledges the structural drivers, and implements meaningful policy reform. Tax restructuring, regulatory simplification, active, genuine corporate retention strategy, not press releases, not ribbon-cutting ceremonies, actual policy change that changes the math for the companies that are currently running their own internal analyses, their own spreadsheet comparisons, their own Oracle-style relocations calculations. I want to believe in Path 3. I genuinely do. But I have been watching this situation for years, and the evidence tells me that the people in Sacramento who have the power to execute Path 3 have so far demonstrated no appetite for it, no urgency around it, and no apparent understanding of how close to the edge the math already is. Oracle was not a corporate tenant that decided to move. Oracle was a co-founder of California's modern economic identity. It was there before Silicon Valley was a brand. It built the database infrastructure that the entire internet economy runs on. It employed 18,000 Californians at wages that supported families, neighborhoods, school districts, and an entire ecosystem of supporting businesses. And California, through punitive taxation, regulatory overreach, political indifference, and institutional arrogance, made the calculation come out wrong. The people who pay the price are not the people who made that calculation. The people who pay are Michelle, who ran a staffing firm in San Jose and laid off 11 employees. The hotel workers in San Francisco, whose October convention season used to include Oracle Open World's 60,000 attendees. The commercial landlords in Redwood Shores, offering 18 months of free rent to fill space Oracle once occupied at premium rates. The teachers in San Mateo County schools, whose funding model depends on commercial property assessments that are now falling. They did not make this decision. They are inheriting its consequences. So here is the question. At what point does a state government become personally accountable, not politically, personally, for the economic decisions that drive foundational employers out of the communities that depend on them? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every one. Share this right now with someone making career decisions, housing decisions, or investment decisions based on assumptions about California's economic trajectory. Subscribe, because Oracle's story is not over. The Redwood Shores campus still has tenants, but the strategic center of gravity for one of the most consequential technology companies in human history is no longer on the edge of San Francisco Bay. The greatest trick California ever pulled was convincing itself that its geography was a competitive advantage that no amount of bad policy could overcome. It was wrong, and Oracle was the proof.